I was just mindlessly scrolling through YouTube one day when I stumbled across a video about this strange and interesting looking game called Kenshi. The channel in question typically modded their game to be as wacky and chaotic as possible, so I didn't have a proper grasp of what it actually was at the time. But at its base, it seemed like a fun experience. An RPG with real-time strategy, something I wasn't fully familiar with or interested in at the time, outside of Brutal Legend, but the fluidity of the mechanics and the large open desert fascinated me, and made me interested in trying the game out myself. Unmodded to begin with, of course. And I have to say, this game was a nightmare to understand, with a complicated and unforgiving world, more akin to a FromSoft game than whatever I'd first expected. But that didn't push me away, and after getting my bearings and experiencing a number of failures that we don't need to talk about right now, I have to say, Kenshi is a phenomenal experience and quickly became my all-time favorite game. Something I later learned to be a passion project by a single spiteful man has got to be one of the most immersive experiences in my life. If you haven't heard of Kenshi before, then I'm hoping I can properly explain to you what exactly it is that makes this game so amazing in my eyes, and maybe convince you to try it out yourself. You start the game out by choosing between one of the preset start options, ranging from a simple nomad to a citizen in one of the game's larger nations. Or you could be a wanted criminal with a finely crafted katana that those larger nations want to take from you. There's even an option to skip a large part of the early game and go on to becoming a faction of your own. My personal favorite for the puzzling introduction is starting as a, we'll say captive, because I don't want to risk getting a strike or something on my first video. And your first goal from there is to figure out how to escape the camp you spawn in using the numerous tools the game gives to you. After choosing a start and customizing your character, you're immediately dropped into the game. You're given a few simple tutorials, and beyond that, it's up to you to figure out what to do. You can go exploring the different regions, but you can't run very fast yet and will easily be taken down and stranded too far away to be saved. You could simply hunt for food, but you'll quickly realize that you're not strong enough to survive more than a few seconds against a wild animal. You could start trying to make money to simply live in the city, but the game doesn't immediately show you any jobs or methods of survival. Everything from the moment you're born into this world is up to you to figure out. And if you don't figure it out in time, well, there's starvation, capture, loss of limbs, vor, cannibalism, ritual sacrifice, wrath of God, sky lasers, acid rain, reverse vor, prison, bounty hunters, banishment, death poisoning, and various other unfavorable occurrences. You're thrown into a world where anything can go wrong for any reason at any time, with the current record for fastest death on game start being 5 seconds, and it's now your job to cope and seethe and get over it on your own. This method of starting the game can be really frustrating and make it hard for people to get into, but personally, I find it really interesting, ingraining the message into you that this is a dark, harsh, and unforgiving world, and you're gonna be thrown cluelessly into situations that you need to figure out on your own. No one is gonna be there to hold your hand when one day the world decides to throw you in and say, good luck, have fun, don't die. It's a cruel and sadistic send-off into a torturous and stressful new life, showing you what to expect and making you familiar with the idea of getting through new and difficult hurdles on your own when the next one inevitably comes. Now, the gameplay itself doesn't seem like much at first, but it becomes a lot more interesting when you get farther in. In the trailer, it shows one review by TechRadar that says the world is the game, not just the setting. And I can't honestly think of a better way to describe it. The world is alive and reactive, with NPCs wandering around lively cities, factions clashing out in the open desert, cults and camps positioned around the map, and you can be a part of it all. And if you choose not to, then they'll still continue on without you. For instance, you could buy property in a town and start a new life as a merchant. People will come and go, some people will buy products they're interested in, with a limit on how much money they're carrying so they can't just buy everything. And as long as you keep stock, the shop will basically sell things on its own. If you stay in town and run that shop, the world will still be colliding outside, with factions attacking each other or trying to raid the city, having the guards stationed outside being your only reassurance of safety. If you leave, you could go on to ally or rival the other factions, wipe out cities and camps, and back home, your humble little shop will still be working for as long as it's stocked. You may have left it behind, but that city hasn't stopped living, and the shop still hasn't stopped selling. Until its stock dries up, it'll keep going with or without you. There are also wild animal dens and nests around the world that will occasionally be wiped out by wandering soldiers, or NPCs you wanted to find and talk to will be dead when you show up due to a bandit raid or animal attack. There are constant reminders of the passage of time and the ever-evolving and decaying world around you. After you've gotten familiar with the world and gotten a small group with decent fields of knowledge, you can form your own faction and start building towns and cities of your own. And this is where things start to get a lot more suspenseful. Remember when I mentioned the game throwing you into difficult hurdles to figure out on your own? After most likely dealing with several of those on your own already, you're now going into a situation full of back-to-back struggles and decisions that can make or break your team, and possibly even send you back into new game level of progress. Depending on who your neighbors are, your city's gonna have a lot of struggles because everyone has rules, opinions, and pre-built power due to their faction being far bigger than yours and being around for much longer. You could start growing crops to feed your people, but maybe some animals will smell it and come attack. Or a city will start taxing you and taking a large portion of what you can get, so you'll start buying food with what money you have left. But a group of bandits might come by for weekly payments, and if you miss your payment this week, they'll come back and attack. You could take the risk and try fending them off from now on. But after the first raid, your farmer could have his leg cut off, and now you need to save up for a prosthetic replacement or just accept that your crop yield has been cut by a much higher percentage than it was before. As your people begin to starve and die out, a few manage to make it to another town in time to buy something to feed themselves. And in a few days' time, you've lost everything and left a hollow, ruined city behind in your memory. This is only one of countless scenarios that can play out if you build your city in the wrong place and don't figure out how to navigate that hurdle on your own. Another example could be living near the calm and protective Holy Nation, or living tax-free in an extremely safe area, but if you don't participate in prayer day every week, or you're caught being friendly with non-humans, or you allow too many women to roam free, or any number of sinful actions, the nation can turn your safe haven into one of the most dangerous regions on the map. You can be part of this world, but you need to learn its rules and boundaries, and remember that you aren't the main character here. The game will treat you with the same level of respect and sympathy as the peasant you saw collapse of starvation out in the sand. And it's this message alone that makes the game so much more immersive than just about anything else I've played. You are not a hero. You're just some guy doing their best in a hopeless situation, just like everyone else you see around you. Now, since Kenshi's gameplay revolves very heavily around the world, I think it's about time I get into that aspect. Honestly, it's impressive, especially for someone who had to build the rest of the game along with it, to have made a world so vast and rich. A nameless moon spanning 870 square kilometers, or 540 miles, with multiple dozen different regions to explore, secrets to discover, people to meet. Each region was specifically designed to be different and unique from each other, feeling like a real world. Making sure that for as much quantity of map there's also a good amount of quality too. Take, for example, the Holy Nation territory. There's a few zones they span making up the body of the god they worship, such as Okran's Gulf, Okran's Valley, Okran's Arms, and Okran's... pride. Well, if God's gonna be proud of something. These areas are patrolled by endless waves of holy paladins. This region is unique for their overwhelmingly safe, yet extremely dictatorial grip over anyone who decided to build their next city within their borders. They have a strict list of rules, and anyone who breaks them is wiped out, so bunk with them at your own risk. A little to the west, we have the Fog Islands, a dark and gloomy maze haunted by a decaying tribe of hivers trying to get by after the loss of their queen, going mad and kidnapping lost travelers consumed by the fog, among rumors of more terrifying beasts. Though this is, oddly enough, the single best area in the game to build a city once you have the strength to fight off the ghouls who came before you. And a little to the north, you find Obedience. What I have to say is the single most fascinating area of the game, and we'll get into that later. A bit below that, we have a more lively hive in the western hive of Vane, a large group of insect people working to better their hive and appease their queen, a unique hiver with a deep hive mind-esque bond with her people. Fuck, how many times am I gonna say hive during this? Her pheromones affect her people's minds and give them euphoria that, when removed, they feel like they can't live without. If you're banished or your bond breaks, it becomes a dark and mortifying craving that can never again be satisfied, making the still bonded hivers repulsed and distressed at the sight of that possible world, never wanting a reminder of the horror that could be. Because of this, ex-hivers are afraid to go back home and are the only outsiders not treated with utmost kindness by the hive themselves. Towards the center of the map, we find a land with constant acid rain that organic life can rarely withstand, leaving only machines to wander. This is the Deadlands, and it's the only safe space for the game's skeletons and ancient machine race to survive. Skeletons are my favorite race in Kenshi, and no, it's not just because they're cool, powerful robots, though I have to admit that plays a little into it. I obsess over these creatures because of what they bring to the story. Black Desert City, located in the Deadlands, is a gothic and unsettling place that looks as depressing as their people's history. Some skeletons have been sitting in here for hundreds of years and plan to sit for thousands more, seeing their friends decay and their people slowly wiped out, having their hopes rise only to inevitably fall when the cruel world takes a little more of their limited life and resources back under the blood-stained sand. In a small way, I feel like they're kind of a reflection of the player, thrown cluelessly into a world that doesn't want or care for them, and losing everything with the passage of time. They're just machines. They weren't programmed to be able to cry, but as the saying goes, skeletons are always crying. These are just a few of many regions of Kenshi. As you explore with your team, you can learn little bits of their personality and history, with different dialogue happening between the party based on what species are or aren't present, what personalities the different characters generated with, and which pre-written characters are present and their personalities, adding a lot more uniqueness to each squad and their adventures together. Most people's favorite interactions being between the hiver Beep and his best friend, the mute skeleton Agnew. Though, while he isn't entirely unique in dialogue, my personal favorite character is Sad Neil, a skeleton found out in Black Desert City. I strongly encourage you, if you haven't played yet and are even remotely interested, get this game and experience the world for yourself. There's so much depth and life in this lifeless husk of a moon, and if you're willing to power through all the stress and unforgiving hurdles this game throws at you, the payoff is an opportunity to immerse yourself in an amazing world and an unforgettable experience. There have been a few times I started this game with no goal in mind, just to simply play and see what happens. One time I was in a lightly modded playthrough where I started out as a skeleton merchant, buying some property and harvesting moisture from the desert air so that I could grow wheat and process it into valuable alcohol. My business grew until I was able to hire people to do some of the work for me, and eventually everything but stocking and selling it became automated. I grew to become a successful business and decided to start going out into the world, ready to expand my business and set up shops on a global scale. Another time I was a captive in Camp Rebirth, starting out with a close hiver friend of mine. We bonded together in the camp for the months that we were there and made plans on how one day we would escape together. One night while the guards were asleep, I busted the lock on my cage and got my shackles off, sneaking out and unlocking my friend's cage. The two of us went around unlocking cages one by one until a horde of prisoners started bolting for the gates and distracting the guards. Me and my friend ran together, but it wasn't enough. A few guards were tailing the two of us. I was a human, and he knew hivers like him were outcasts to the Holy Nation. I had a chance, but he wouldn't make it if we stayed together. So he ran back and drew the guards away, giving me the chance I needed to escape. Near town, I saw some guards fighting a pack of wolves, a few dying in the encounter, and giving me a chance to jump in and grab a disguise from their body. I started doing small work in the cities to afford food, keeping on the road frequently before anyone could notice that I was an escapee. Eventually, I made it to the border zone and was officially free. From then, I started gathering a following with other refugees and enemies of the Holy Nation, building my army so that one day we could storm the desert and take their land, liberate their camp, and one day see my friend again. Having no plans or expectations beforehand, I just picked a few interesting sounding starts and ended up going headfirst into an experience I wasn't aware I would ever play. It's an amazing thing how often this game gives me simple and mindless goals that throw me into such fascinating and elaborate stories. Stories that the game didn't preset. These are my stories, and I appreciate the opportunity to play them. Now, Kenshi does have lore and pre-written story that I would like to bring up that also enhances the experience. But first, there's another thing I probably could have transitioned more smoothly into, but who cares? This is my video. The next thing that needs to be mentioned is the incredible art and soundtrack of this game. Kenshi's art style I feel is best summed up by another content creator who I would recommend watching after this video. I'll leave one of her videos in the description to check out. Nurse calls Kenshi the perfect steampunk samurai western fantasy game, and going on aesthetic I would agree. The world is a large desert, but despite all being the same desert, there's so much diversity and life and color in the various regions the game has you explore. While there are areas that are just sand, that's only a fraction of the environment, and it's blended perfectly into the more lively areas around it. Sure, you can find empty sand in the desert, or the sandy hills to the west. Or maybe go to the black and gray heart of the world where acid never stops raining, the foggy pits where ancient technology was once buried deep under the sand, and even an oasis in the center where horrifying monsters have grown and thrived in the world's ordinarily rare foliage. Kenshi refuses to let the desert atmosphere limit the art style, and creates amazing settings that can contrast each other phenomenally, giving players plenty of reason to not only explore, but to be more open about where to build their base. You get a lot of options for the setting you want to stick with, and the visual of that setting can give you a better idea of what resources are available and how living in it will likely play out. You can find people living along the bright beaches in gorgeous and bloodied towns, or delve into the dark and cryptic areas the people left behind ages ago. Now, I know some people might be looking at these graphics in confusion. They're a bit dated. The game began work sometime around 2006 to 2008, and it was done on an old engine called Ogre. There is a team working on a sequel, though, called Kenshi 2, using the Unreal Engine, and I have to say the new visuals are amazing, showing the art style in a more modern standard. And the visuals are paired nicely with the game's music, an elegant soundtrack that plays as you explore the world, giving the ominous feeling of the constant, steady decay of the people, with glimpses at the beauty underneath. The full thing is only 50 minutes long, so you could give it a quick listen on YouTube or buy the soundtrack on Steam to show the dev extra support. From what I understand, the art was far from this good in the beginning, and the game had long moments of silence. This aspect wasn't until later in development when the dev quit his part-time job and could focus on development full-time, so he supplemented the lack of art and design by coding in design until he could get volunteers and assistants, which I don't know much about coding, but I think to the average person that just sounds more impressive. But anyway, the sound and visuals are amazing, but what I find the most intriguing in any game is the story that those visuals portray, so I think it's about time I get into the writing. In 1,000 years, you'd expect there to be a lot of lore, and the game gives it to you as you interact with the many people across the desert, finding fascinating landmarks and learning the stories behind them. I'll give you a simple rundown of the main storyline based off of my own current knowledge, but it's nowhere near everything in this game's 1,000-year history. In old times, humans had giant machines, ones that rivaled skyscrapers in size. They were fiercely loyal to the humans, sentient gods that obeyed those 1,000,000 times weaker than them. The humans understood how powerful these machines are and feared that one day they'd turn that power against them. And so they dug a massive pit and asked the Titans to go in, before sealing them all under the cold sand.
After the war, the behemoths lost their purpose. Man became afraid of the destructive capabilities of its own creations. The irony is, it was their blind obedience and unquestioning loyalty that walked them down that pit, entirely unresisting. The price of obedience.
You can find this pit in-game, a giant circle of white fog appropriately named Obedience, where you can see the enormous arms of the powerful creatures sealed underneath, reaching out in fear and hope, some attempt at survival, now motionless. There's no more life left in the sand. After the fall of the giants, the more average-sized skeletons that you can still find today became reasonably upset, rebelling against them and causing the downfall into the world that we see in-game. They started the first extinction attempt against the humans, although while most of the giants died in obedience, one actually survived and can be seen in-game, though not alive anymore. Stobe is a mysterious figure in the world, but is praised and loved by all the skeletons, stating that he sacrificed himself to save everyone, human and skeleton. And this, from what I understand, was the end of that war, after which the skeletons felt remorse for rebelling, and many even took their own lives in the guilt. While they were built to be logical, loyal, and prioritize survival, they weren't coded to have a single process. They have complex and often conflicting processes, things that make them feel good or feel bad, going into fully complex emotions. They can be sad, they can be happy, they can be envious, they can feel pain and pleasure, and with this, they're conflicted by the logical programming in them, making them rationalize things and act on what's best. If a friend went mad and needed to be killed off, they would feel a range of things about this. Fear, wanting to escape the danger, sadness, not wanting to hurt a friend, and the logic that it's what needs to be done. They have all these processes going off all at once and struggle to act, possibly making rash decisions or fleeing from responsibility. They're not different from humans in that way, and as such, it's safe to say that they truly are sentient life, given no physical relief. They can't touch, they can't smile, they can't cry. But as the saying goes, skeletons are always crying. As time wears on them, they become more emotionally unstable and eventually need a reset. They're completely wiped, with no memories of their past life, no memories of what they've done. They don't even have a name. Starting off fresh in a world they no longer recognize, just like the player. A skeleton will always one day wake back up in the world, fully grown and ready to head out, but with no knowledge of where to go, what to do, what's even happening. There's plenty more history and countless other characters and stories to learn, but I'll leave that to you to experience and dive into yourself. For now, this is the end of my rant about what I have to say is my favorite game to this day. I hope you enjoyed and that I maybe got you curious to check it out yourself. I'd really like to discuss further, hear other people's perspectives and experiences, but for now, that's all.